And joining us now, we welcome back Brad Duguid, Ontario's Minister of Energy and the MPP for Scarborough Centre. Nice to have you back here.
Great to be back.
Well, as is our custom on this program, we're not going to talk about 20 things. We're going to talk about two things. Great. I want to talk about nuclear policy and energy politics. So let's start with the nukes. As you well know, half of the electricity produced in this province is generated by nuclear power. I want to know whether the Fukushima disaster has changed this government's approach to nuclear energy.
Well, the short answer is no. I think to expand that a little bit, there are things that can be learned from the Japanese experience, and we plan to look at that experience very, very carefully.
What can we learn?
Well, a variety of different things. Their backup systems obviously failed in some cases. Did they have the best possible evacuation process in place? There's a series of things that we're looking at in very detail. And incidentally, it's Tom Mitchell, who is the CEO and president of our Ontario Power Generation, that's been asked to head up the committee to look into the Japanese experience, which is good news for Ontario, because that means we've got really a window into the learnings taking place in Japan as we speak.
How safe are our nukes?
They are safe as safe can be. We match, in fact, we exceed all international standards with regard to nuclear units. What happened in Japan is not something that could happen here in Ontario.
No, we're not going to have a tsunami here,
We're not going to have a tsunami. Our plants, though, are built to withstand whatever Mother Nature in this part of the world can throw at them. Now, our technology here is different, and I don't want to say that it's necessarily better. I don't want to go there, but it's certainly different. What happened in Japan would be highly, highly unlikely to ever happen here in terms of from a technology perspective as well.
Let me bring the green energy angle into this. And of course, your government has been one of the most aggressive jurisdictions, certainly in North America, maybe anywhere in the world on the green energy front. In spite of that, you still see nuclear being 50% of our mix going well into the future. How come?
Well, we put a lot of thought into this. We have a long-term energy plan. First government ever to have that. It's a 20-year plan. We did a lot of consultation on it. And what we determined is that 50% of your mix of energy is the sweet spot for nuclear for a variety of different reasons. It's baseload capacity. If you have too much of it and your demand goes down, it's really hard to close down those nuclear units. So 50% is about the right capacity. It is clean, it's reliable, it's proven. We have a very successful history with nuclear here. And we also have...
I got to stop you there. We have a very successful history with nuclear here?
Oh, absolutely.
Hasn't every project gone over budget? Wasn't Darlington like 3,000% over budget?
But at the end of the day, it's provided many years of reliable power at a price that's affordable.
So once it's built, it's not bad. But building it, there have been horror stories at building these things.
These are, highly technological projects, very complex. They're very large projects. What we found and what we've learned from past problems in terms of building nuclear is pre-planning cannot be shortchanged in any way. You've got to do a lot of pre-planning. You've got to be ready for anything. As you're building any complex project, and whether it's nuclear or whether it's the Niagara Tunnel, which we just tunneled through, the largest...
What do you call it again?
Big Becky.
Big Becky.
Big Becky, the biggest boring machine ever, has just
boring
in
as
Ontario.
In tunneling,
not boring to talk about.
Right.
And that's just poked her nose out of after 3 or 4 years underground. 10.2 kilometer tunnel, 4 stories in diameter. It will provide clean, renewable power to about 160,000 households for the next 100 years or more.
Well, I want to ask you about the nukes, because I know you had plans, and maybe you could sort of tell us where this lies right now. You did have plans to spend, I guess potentially, tens of billions of dollars on new nuclear build, I guess 3 reactors at Darlington. Those plans go back several years, and then everybody came forward with bids that you thought, you guys almost died from the sticker shock on those things. So you've sent them back. Where's that at right now?
Well, right now, the federal government, which is just named their cabinet today, this has got to be a priority for them. AECL is under restructuring right now.
Atomic Energy of Canada.
Atomic Energy of Canada. That's the organization that we were negotiating with to purchase these 2 units. In the middle of our negotiations, the federal government said, or we're going to restructure the organization. So we didn't have anybody to work with on the other side. Steve, we want to buy these units if we can domestically, because there's 70,000 jobs that depend on this industry. And we feel that there's a lot of potential internationally for us to reach out into that $1 trillion international nuclear market. But it starts with getting these 2 units purchased here in Ontario.
So 2 units or 3? I think I said 3.
Well, it's 2. It's two,
Okay.
2 units. So what we're counting on now is we're counting on the federal government to make this a very significant priority, get to it very early in their mandate.
Are
In
they
fact, in a
pressuring
matter
you to
of
buy it?
weeks.
Are they pressuring you?
Well, the federal government, frankly, has kind of tried to back away from the their nuclear involvement, and we feel 70,000 jobs are at stake if they do. So it's not so much pressure from the federal government. We want to purchase these units, and we want to purchase them domestically. We're only going to purchase them at a fair price for Ontario
I was gonna ask,
ratepayers.
you want a subsidy for purchasing these?
No, it'll have to be at
No?
a fair price for purchasing these. And
Well, wait a sec. Newfoundland got a deal,
Oh.
right? They got loan guarantees to do their Churchill deal over the election campaign?
we'll be looking to the federal government to play a role in this as well. And most of the role that the federal government would play here would be backstopping the risk involved.
Right.
And that's really what we'd be looking at them to do.
You do know, though, that everybody around the world who cares about this file is looking to Ontario, because if you guys don't buy these things, no one else around the world is going to buy them either, right?
Well, that's the challenge. We have a very successful nuclear business in this country that's been proven around the world. They can do reactors. Have been well thought of. There's a lot of technology that's been developed here in Canada. If the federal government were to let AECL just die off, that could be the Avro arrow of our generation. We don't want to see that happen. 70,000 jobs are at stake.
For those who don't remember, that was back, I think, in 1959. It was a fighter jet that was made up in Malton, I guess Mississauga today, and the Diefenbaker government canceled it because it was getting the costs were getting out of hand, I guess they thought at the time.
Yeah, and it set us back technologically, and the potential for us to be in a very lucrative market for many, many years.
Were you there in your office on the day the Greenpeace guys handcuffed themselves?
I was sitting in the legislature that day, but my immediate phone call to my staff was, make sure you look after them well and make sure that they have lots of coffee or whatever it is that they want.
Well, of course they did that because they're very good about doing stunts to bring attention to things they care about. And one of the things they wanted to bring our attention to by doing that was that they think that this province can reduce its reliance on nuclear power from the 50% it is today to 30% by the end of this decade. Could we do that?
Well, it's not a question of could
35%,
well,
I should say.
Yeah, it's not a question of could. It's a question of is that the best way to go? And like I said, we've put together a long-term energy plan. We've put a lot of thought into it. We've got to keep in mind cost. We've got to keep in mind reliability. And our priority as a government is to replace dirty coal with cleaner sources of power like renewables. And we're leading the world in doing that. But we feel the reliability of nuclear is really critical. It's half of our baseload capacity. And I believe it's unrealistic to think for us to reduce it to something like 30%.
When they chain themselves in your office, do you go to these guys afterwards and say, would you please cut me some slack here, right? We're the greenest energy government in North America, and you guys are still busting our chops on. I mean, do you have that conversation with them?
Well, I think most responsible environmentalists are very supportive of our efforts to build a clean energy
Greenpeace
economy.
in that camp?
At times, but they still have a role to play, and they want to make sure that they're heard. And it's a democracy, and we don't welcome them chaining themselves to our desks. At the same time, we recognize that they want to be seen and heard.
Okay, that's the nuclear file. Let's do the energy politics, which of course have been red hot in the last couple of years. And I got to tell you, we've taken this program on the road to Ottawa, Hamilton, Niagara. We just got back from Niagara on the Lake Monday night, and energy pricing, energy politics is always one of the most significant topics that people want to talk about at our agenda camps. To that end, Tim Hudak, you know him, PC party leader, called the $7 billion deal that you guys signed with Samsung, quote, odious, a ripoff. He says if he becomes premier in the fall, he's going to rip up the contract. What's your response?
Well, just as we're turning our economy around, just as we're turning our energy system around, we're turning the corner on both of those. Tim Hudak wants to kill our energy plans, kill our clean energy economy, and kill thousands of clean energy jobs that have been and are being created across this province. This is not the time to do that. It's also going to damage our international reputation and make it more difficult for Ontario to attract investments down the road.
Why?
This is, well, because we've just made a $7 billion investment that Samsung is making in Ontario.
Just to be clear, they're spending
$7
here.
billion here, creating 16,000 jobs over the life of that contract.
And in exchange, they're getting what?
In exchange, they'll be getting a feed-in tariff rate, or a rate for the power they produce, and they'll be getting a small adder that will be available to them to encourage them to open 4 manufacturing plants, creating thousands of jobs that'll be created out of that alone. The key with the Samsung initiative is that's kind of been the anchor tenant that's put Ontario on the map globally. We're now the clean energy global powerhouse throughout the world.
What would it cost to break that contract, the penalties?
Well, frankly, any contract, if you were to break it, there's going to be consequences. Any private sector entity, and Samsung has already made a substantial amount of investments here in Ontario, would look certainly to be compensated. So number one, it's going to cost you just to break the contract. Number two, it's just a dumb thing to do because that's creating thousands of jobs at a time we need it most.
Let me suggest how do I put this colloquially? There's no virgins on this file anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, you guys had this, gasification plant in Oakville that you wanted to build, and it was going to be $1.2 billion, and the political heat got too hot, and so, well, that's one interpretation. You'd tell me there was another one. And you guys canceled the contract. You ripped it up. So it can be done, right?
There's always a cost, and we're in discussions still with TransCanada now on that. And we knew at the time, the reason why we didn't want to move forward with Oakville is we didn't need that power there anymore.
I know that's what you guys say, but no one believes that. They all think you're trying to save the seat there.
Well,
anyway.
well the difference between that and what we're talking about here is huge. I mean, what we're talking about in terms of Tim Hudak's decision is he wants to kill a clean energy industry that's become the top in the world. That involves thousands of jobs across this province. It's not a smart way to move forward. In some ways, politically, it's something that we welcome. But at the same time, if you care about jobs, if you care about Ontario families, if you care about building a strong economy, that's the exact opposite direction to go in.
Let me get your view on this kind of interesting development that happened in the last few days, where we found out that despite the fact that Tim Hudak wants to cancel this feed-in tariff program, he thinks you guys you're offering subsidies that are too high, sending the cost of power too high. We discovered that one of the members of his own caucus, Frank Cleese, is on the board of a company that would benefit from this. But Frank Cleese also thinks the rates are too high. And he said he'd be content, as somebody who stands to benefit, to have the rates cut dramatically because he thinks they're still too high. Now, there's a guy who's sort of prepared to feel it in the pocketbook because he disagrees with the policy you're putting forward. Does that make you question the rates that you're offering?
Not at all. The reason why the rates were set where they were was to attract investment from around the world and make Ontario the place of destination for clean energy.
And that's happening.
It's working. We have 30 companies now in Ontario setting up manufacturing facilities.
So do the rates need to come down now?
The rates, and this was always part of the plan from day one. Very soon I'll be setting up the review committee, which will be looking at the rates, and the rates will be coming down as a result of that review. The industry's fully aware of that. That's been the plan from the very beginning. But we needed to, Ontario was nowhere on the clean energy international market until we got involved with the Samsung initiative and we moved forward with this feed-in tariff contract, which is the best feed-in tariff program in the world. That's what's created this huge clean energy economy. That's what's created thousands of jobs in this province and billions of dollars of investment that we would not have had otherwise.
No, I hear you on that, but we're in an era of bumper sticker politics, right? Where people go around and they do slogans and they relentlessly hammer away at a single message over and over and over. And Tim Hudak is saying, why the heck are we paying 80 cents a kilowatt hour for power to do it with these renewables when we can buy it for 3 or 4 cents on the open market in some other way? Now that's going to resonate with some people, right?
Well, what will resonate with people as well is the fact that Tim Hudak's plan is to kill the program, take out the Samsung initiative, that will have the effect of destroying our clean energy economy and taking out thousands of clean energy jobs at a time we need them most. I think that'll resonate a lot as well. In fact, I think Ontario families, just as we turn the corner and coming through this recession, I mean, we're up 114% now. we've now created more jobs than we lost during the recession. We're finally going in the right direction. The United States are at about 15% in terms of their job recovery.
You got to be careful with that stuff, though, because yes, the numbers of jobs have returned, but they're paying half of what the old jobs paid.
Well, not in the clean energy sector. I mean, when you're looking at those clean energy jobs, they're next generation jobs. Many of them are engineering jobs. I mean, it's a whole gambit. I was at a place in Scarborough, Samco, 60 new jobs there. They've moved from the auto sector into the clean energy sector, but they have 23 suppliers that are supplying them as they're building parts for the solar industry. This is a huge industry, thousands of jobs, and billions of dollars of investment. Now's not the time to kill it.
Last 20 seconds. Are you concerned that with the election only 5 months away, you guys are vulnerable on this issue?
No, I would be concerned if this is not an issue during the next election, because we're fighting for cleaner air. We're fighting for more jobs, thousands of jobs, to preserve jobs that Tim Hudak wants to kill. This is an issue that I think is going to resonate with Ontario families, and we're keeping bills flat, and that's according to the Ontario Energy Board with our clean energy benefits. So this is an issue once Ontario families learn more about, I believe we'll want to keep on the track that we're on.
Brad Duguid, always good of you to drop by our studios. Thanks so much.
It's a pleasure, Steve.
There's the Minister of Energy, Brad Duguid.